This November, Black Americans are projected to account for 14% of all U.S. eligible voters, a number that has grown slowly but steadily. And their role is outsized in certain regions of the country. More than half of all black voters live in southern states. That includes states like Texas, which is home to 2.9 million black voters, the largest number in any state, followed by Georgia, a closely watched swing state. In 2020, black voters remained overwhelmingly loyal to the Democratic Party, with 92% voting for Joe Biden. But this year, polls show a massive jump in support for Donald Trump among black voters. Spectrum News national political reporter Taylor Poplar spoke to voters in Georgia in this report.
Can I have 30 milkshakes?
Former President Donald Trump was back on the campaign trail in Georgia this week, stopping at an Atlanta Chick-fil-A ahead of a campaign fundraiser. It's Trump's second visit to the Peach State in recent months, as Georgia is set to be a key battleground state once again in the presidential election. Just last month, President Joe Biden was also in Atlanta, as three national organizations that represent Black, Asian, and Latino voters launched a $30 million organizing effort to turn out communities of color for Biden. In Georgia, over 33% of the population is black, a voting bloc that was key to Biden's narrow victory over then-President Trump in 2020. Black Georgians told us they feel the Biden campaign is doing ample outreach.
I think so. I think that there could be more always, but I think that a lot of attention has been put there just because black women show up in large numbers all the time, because we do see that our democracy is on the line.
Enough is being done, but there's always more that can be done. The black base here in Georgia is behind President Biden, and we will continue to do so, particularly black women.
Hello, Georgia.
While a majority of non-black voters in Georgia favored Trump in 2020, several supporters told us last month they hope the former president tries to make inroads with the black community this time around.
I think just reaching out to the minorities and to the working class, the middle class, because we have to be built back up again.
I think he's reaching out to every genre of the population, not just my age, but to the younger ones, to the black population, the African Americans, every genre.
Vivian Childs is a former chair of the Georgia Black Republican Council, who also served as a director on the National Diversity Coalition for Trump.
We are reaching people wherever they are, whether it be in the church, on the playground, in the schools. We're out there, and we're carrying his words with us.
Mikkel Bartholomew is a Georgia-based Republican commentator who wrote the book, Trump is Not a Racist, Here's Why. She acknowledges it's harder for Republicans to engage with black voters and thinks Trump should visit inner cities to be more visible. She also thinks his legal troubles present an opportunity.
Ever since Trump has been arrested and he got that mugshot, a lot of black people have softened their heart for some reason towards Trump. Some people say because he's just like us. He's been treated unfairly by the justice system the same way that we were.
In Washington, Taylor Poplar, Spectrum News.
Joining me now to talk more about the black electorate is Leah Wright Rigueur, a political historian at Johns Hopkins and the author of The Loneliness of the Black Republican. And Leah, the most recent New York Times Siena poll found that 23% of black voters would vote for Trump if the election were held today. That's the highest level of support for a Republican candidate since Nixon got 32% of the black vote in 1960. What's going on? How is that possible?
So it's not as surprising as we would like to think. And I think the biggest thing to remember is that Barack Obama is no longer on the ticket and is no longer the face of the Democratic Party. And so the kind of numbers that we're seeing in terms of black voters and the Trump administration or the Trump campaign at this point are actually simply just a return to the numbers that we have seen before that. Now, the real question is, will those numbers actually show up in the election? And my job essentially today is to tell you that probably not. We're not going to see about Trump win 25% of the black vote, the eligible black vote. But what we may see is an actual increase in a return of those black voters who used to be in the Republican Party prior to Barack Obama. We may see them, quote unquote, come home. So it's essentially a return back to the norm of what we saw in the relationship between African Americans and Republicans prior to Barack Obama. It just feels weird because it's Donald Trump.
Very interesting. Now, President Biden today made a virtual stop at the Reverend Al Sharpton's Racial Justice Conference, the National Action Network. He addressed black voters in New York. Why are black voters disappointed with Biden and the Democrats? The polls do seem to be picking up some of that as well.
Absolutely. And so the question here, too, I think is much bigger than the idea of Trump, of Black people voting for Donald Trump. It's actually a question about what is the relationship between Black voters and the Democratic Party, and what has been that longstanding relationship. So because Black voters are so partisan, right? 92% of Black voters in the last election went for the Democratic candidate for president. That's pretty partisan. But because they're so partisan, we don't actually take a closer look at what are the things that are actually motivating these tensions. African Americans, by and large, feel forgotten by the Democratic Party and feel taken for granted. And they have spelled this out innumerable times. They've said it in public letters. They said it in a letter to the head of the DNC a couple of years ago. Black women in particular feel slighted given all their loyalty to the Democratic Party. And so they're asking for very specific things. They're asking for police and criminal justice reform. They're asking for things like maternal health care. They're asking for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and protection, the George Floyd Criminal Justice Reform Act. So they're asking for all of these things and policies that they can feel on a day-to-day basis. And for many Black people, many Black voters, it feels like the Democratic Party no longer cares. So that is a message the Democratic Party should be receiving loud and clearly and doing something about.
To the extent that we've never had this happen before, we've never had a former president criminally indicted, but have those indictments boosted his popularity with Black voters as far as you can tell?
So I just want to go out there and say that Black people are not running to these like opinion polls and everything and saying, I want to vote for Trump because he's been indicted and has a mugshot. That is absolutely ridiculous and slightly bigoted. What we might see, though, is that Black people are taking a closer look at Trump and how he is being treated by the criminal justice system because of the overwhelming and the sheer number of cases. And that may open them to a kind of receptiveness that certain cross sections of the Black community have to a candidate like Donald Trump. Will it play out in the end? Probably not to the extent that we're seeing show up in the polls right now, but it may actually have an impact. It may matter.
Thank you very much, Leah. Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.